Good morning and greetings from Northumberland on the 17th of July. Another lovely, calm and beautiful Northumberland morning. Greetings to everyone wherever you are. I did meet someone yesterday who's been watching and sharing in our prayers from down in Bedford. And it's really good to hear people from all over the country are sharing in these prayers, which I am committed to continuing certainly into the medium-term future, and by that I mean at least through to the end of this year before we take stock about what to do. And that will be alongside our beginning to open up for live services in church and outdoors during the next few weeks, leading, I hope, to a resumption, more of a resumption at least, in September. That just keeps us where we are. I want to just think for a minute about the gospel today. And the gospel today from St. Matthew's Gospel, chapter 12, is one of those conflict gospels that we so often get. We've got Jesus and walking through the Sabbath, through the cornfields, and his disciples began to prick the ears of corn, rub them in their hands, and eat them. I did that, I remember, when I was a child, not because I was hungry, but because it seemed like a fun thing to do. And the Pharisees, immediately they pick this out and notice it and criticize Jesus for it. Why do your disciples break the law? And of course it's so trivial. It's so unimportant. And I think that's the important thing I want to hold out here. When we see the tensions, and the tensions are always there in the gospel between Jesus and the religious authority, the thing that provokes them is often very trivial. Sometimes it's much more important, like the healing of someone, but often it's just a small rule that's been broken. And the Pharisees sort of heap down on Jesus. You could imagine if we had Twitter then, you'd be one of the Pharisees was saying, Jesus letting his disciples rub the corn in their hands, breaking the law, terrible. You can imagine it was be like a Twitter storm, but in this case it's rather different. Here we have really highlighted the very different attitude and the very different motive that we have in Jesus's work and in the Pharisees. And let me explain that by taking you back to yesterday's gospel. Yesterday's gospel, which we actually use morning and night in our prayers. And it's a marvellous passage from just a few verses earlier, from the end of Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 to 30. And I guarantee you'll know it. Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who labour and are overburdened, and I will give you rest. Shoulder my yoke and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart. You will find rest for your souls. Yes, my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Jesus is saying, come to me. Come to me. And take up my yoke, which is my way, my path. But this is a path of love. Remember, was it last week, Jesus looked at the crowds and had compassion on them because they were lost and alone like sheep without a shepherd. That's the thread that runs through the Gospels. It is the compassion of Jesus for people. And of course, that is a reflection of the compassion of God for people. David Jenkins, the rather controversial Bishop of Durham in the last century, said, "God is as he is in Jesus. Therefore we have hope." And that is such a profound way of understanding God. Sometimes when I read the Old Testament, even the great prophet Isaiah and the Psalms, I think, what sort of God does this person believe in? What sort of God is this person holding out? And then I remember those words of David Jenkins, and I remember the words of Jesus. God is as he is in Jesus, therefore we have hope. Come to me. and I will give you rest. Shoulder my yoke, walk my path, and I will take you forward. This is important. The God we believe in, the God we follow, is the God who is revealed to us in Jesus Christ. God is as he is in Jesus, full of compassion, full of hope, full of care for each individual person. That is why we love him, because he first loved us. And that is why we follow him, and why we are filled with hope. May God bless us today.